I'm Nikolai from the Steely Dan Strings, and welcome to the first in my series of videos on how to write for strings. I promise you, if you invest just a little bit of time in learning this stuff, the music you write for strings will always sound better. First of all, because you're writing for the instrument and not against it, and secondly, because the people playing your music can always tell if you invest just a little bit of time in respecting their craft enough to learn about how the instrument is played. And they will always give more in themselves to your music when they feel that from your music. Today, we're going to look at left-hand technique for violin and viola. This is the kind of stuff you can learn from an orchestration book. They have charts to show you how violin fingerings work, and I tried to learn how to write for cello using one of those charts, but I couldn't really wrap my head around it until a friend showed me on an actual cello. So that's what I'm going to do for you today. Today, I'm going to focus on the violin, but everything I say holds equally true for the viola. When it comes to the left hand, it's played in exactly the same way. The first thing you need to know about left-hand technique is that of the 5 fingers of the hand, we only use 4 to produce note because the thumb is used to support the neck of the violin. We call them first, second, third, and fourth finger. The violin is tuned in fifths, so the open strings are G, D, A, and E. The viola is also tuned in fifths, but it starts a fifth lower than the violin. So the bottom string is C, and we get G, D, and A. That means that the viola shares the top 3 strings with the bottom 3 strings of the violin. They are the same, but of course the viola has a completely different timbre and sound. So here's how fingerings in the left hand works. Between each finger there's either a whole step or a half step. And conveniently, since we use 4th finger and the instrument is tuned in fifths, playing the scales falls naturally under the hand. Here's our open G string. First finger on the A, second finger on the B, third finger goes on C, fourth finger goes on D. I could also play this with the open string, but violinists tend to avoid open strings because they kind of stick out. Now the next note, luckily, because it's tuned in fifths and we have 4 fingers, is right over on the next string with the first finger. Same thing again, next note here. This means that anything that falls within the octave, for example, is very easy. So a scale is always this pattern of 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Of course, we don't have to stay down here. We can move the whole hand up a whole step and put our first finger on the B. Now second finger's on the C. And again, the next note is right over on the next string. That is called second position, second note up from the open string. Third position, we start on the third note over the open string. And so on and so forth. So the span of the hand is a fourth, sometimes a tritone. That means that any pattern that falls within 4 fingers on the same string is very easy to play. Or things like that. You can also do patterns on 2 strings. But you have to be careful with the fifth. Because the instrument is tuned in fifths, the only way to play a fifth is to place the same finger on 2 strings at once, sort of in between the 2 strings. This is not a problem in itself, but as you go higher and higher up the fingerboard, the distance between the string gets bigger and the string is higher and higher over the fingerboard. So you have to press down more and use more force to get the string down, and that makes it difficult to play a fifth in tune. So if you write, say, a 5-note pattern like this, where I can't use open strings, you're forcing me to play this fifth with the 4th finger, and that's difficult to get in tune. Now I could play it in the 5th position, And because my first finger is bigger than the fourth, it's easier to get that fifth up there in tune. A pattern like this is no problem because this six is easy to block out on two strings at once because it's two different fingers. Now, all the stuff I just said about fifths doesn't mean don't write fifths. Of course not. Fifths are a pretty important part of some of the best melodies ever written for the violin. All I'm saying is understand how they're applied so you understand when they become a challenge. When you are in first position, it's pretty safe to write whatever you want. That every time you write a fifth, it either involves putting the same finger on two strings at once or a position change. And all this stuff mostly applies to legato fifths when you want a smooth connection between two fifths. There you go, a very brief introduction to left hand technique for violin and viola. Thanks for watching.